Welcome back to Why Blank Lost for Survivor 45. I'm David Bloomberg, and I promise I will not quit this podcast.
Oh, thank God.
Yes. Now, someone else who is also in it for the long haul is, of course, my co-host, Jessica Lewis.
Yes, I'm also not going to be quitting today either. Okay. Thank you very much. So just to put that out there, that's a nice way to start the podcast.
Yes.
So welcome back, everyone who is listening. And we have someone else with us today, right?
That's right. If you're watching, you already can see making a return visit to the podcast is our special guest, Lindsay Carmine from Survivor 43.
Hi. Hey, thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely.
So honored.
We heard you when you quit.
We're excited. So.
Quitting is not in my vocabulary.
All right.
Oh, I love this. Well, this is a great way to start. This is so good.
See, here's the thing, though. Regular listeners and viewers know we don't have guests most weeks. As a matter of fact, we had Heidi in week 1, and now we have you.
Yeah.
And in week 1, there was a quit, and now there's a quit. And so we have talked before about us causing a reverse butterfly effect.
Yes.
On Survivor due to our predictions. I'm wondering if we might be causing it by having guests on too. Like we're causing the quits.
Ooh. Do you know what's interesting? I predicted Sifu was going to go home too. See? It's just having.
Are we renaming the podcast? Why blank quit?
Yeah, well, why we caused to lose? Yes.
At this rate, I think we might have to change it to why blank quit.
Yeah. Well,
I know, we're 2 out of 4. That's 50% of the people that have gone home have quit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just telegraphing it here. We're having a guest on episode 8, so we apologize in advance for whoever quits.
Yeah. Sorry. Listen, if that's what this season is remembered for, because it has the most people quitting, I'm going to be very, very sad.
Yes.
Same.
Now, one person who never quits is Rob Sesternino, and we are recording this on his birthday. So happy birthday, Rob.
Happy birthday,
Rob. We love you.
We do. I would do that heart thing, but I just do it wrong. I don't know if it's like some people are really good. You're like, yeah, you're good at it.
I'm a Taylor Swift fan, and I've got a 13-year-old daughter that's like, I think there's another one that they do. I haven't figured that one out yet. I'll figure it out.
The only symbols I know with my fingers are not hearts. So,
have you guys seen the finger hearts? I love to do that all the time too. That's little like finger hearts. Yeah. Yeah, we did it. We actually did it to each other all the time on Cocoa Beach.
That's cute. So. I like that. Look at us. Just sending the love.
Yes.
Right before we were going to send a lot of non-love.
Now, I want to start out here by echoing something I said in our Why Hannah Lost podcast, which is that some people may be wondering why we're even here since Sean quit. But even when someone isn't voted out, we still examine their game to that point. Plus, just as some players do things wrong that result in them getting voted out, we'll discuss the things Sean did wrong that resulted in him leaving of his own volition. And we'll do that the same way we do every week by comparing his game to my rules for winning that I originally wrote way back after season 1 and have been updating ever since. We'll use all the non-spoiler information available to us from what we saw on TV, interviews, social media, and secret scenes. The interviews particularly important this time since it, clarifies and in some cases contradicts what was shown on TV.
Monday morning quarterbacking, right?
Well, we'll discuss that when we get there.
All right, Lindsay and I are going to get along really well tonight. I can tell this is going to be like.
The newest version of the rules can be found on the website by going to our dedicated page at robhasawebsite.com/YXLostFeed and clicking on the link bubble for Survivor Rules. Now, before we get to our discussion of Sean and the rules, we always have some other things to discuss from this week's episode. When Hannah quit, we each gave our opinions about it before we went to the rules. This time, I feel like it would be better, for me at least, to wait until we get into the rules because my opinions are tied to the reason he said he did it. So it would be weird to say, here are my opinions, but I'm not going to, before we get into the reasons. So that'll become pretty obvious when we get there. When we switch from objective analysis to here are our opinions. And here's a hint, rule 4. But with that said, I do want to mention that Sean is the first person I remember who has said afterwards that they regret quitting.
Mm-hmm.
Many people who quit in early days, I'm talking all the way back to Austin, they came out strong, defensive, aggressive mode and often made themselves look worse in the process.
Yeah.
Like they were just a-holes, some of them. Earlier this season, Hannah calmly explained that she did what was right for her. So she didn't fall into that. And Sean went even further in saying, yeah, he looks back and there's regret. As he told Mike Bloom, that's something that I need to find a way to live with because I made my bed. I got to lay in it. So at the very least, without getting into the thoughts about the quit yet, I can appreciate someone with that kind of honesty who says, yeah, I do regret it, as opposed to getting all defensive and arguing against the interviewers, which is more the experience I'm used to having.
It's a fair point because I do think that when you go through a circumstance like this, and I'm not just saying quitting Survivor, when you just go through playing the game of Survivor, there is a tendency to, you want to try to almost rewrite history a little bit because you know what you were doing when you were on the island, and not all of that is shown and not all of that is seen by the world that is watching. And so this crazy idea. So I do feel like there's probably this part of you that wants to either fill in the blanks or say, you don't understand. And this is why I did this. And so I can understand that like desire, but I do think that it's at least something to be said about stepping up and going, you know what? Yeah, maybe that was not the right choice. I do regret it. I can appreciate that as opposed to kind of like digging in your heels and going, nope. And being, as you said, like a jerk about it.
Yeah. And we'll talk about a couple people later who fell more into the second category, I'll say. But now, aside from the quit, there was a lot going on in the episode, but there's also a lot going on in some shirts on this podcast here. So I want to, mention, in case anyone's wondering, you're watching and like, why does David's shirt say holy? It's holy cow. Like in holy cow, we have 2 quitters on this season.
There was a season 2 people quit at the same time.
And those are the ones I was just talking about.
Yes.
Now, Lindsay, you look like you have a shirt for a concert tour.
I do. So my Survivor fan turned friend, Kevin from, I think it's Survivor Super Fun Time. He has created an entire line of Survivor themed shirts and hoodies and sweatshirts. So this is the Survivor New Era tour. It's kind of a play off of the Taylor Swift Eras tour. And then underneath it, sorry, I have a broken foot right now, so I got to be careful.
Oh my goodness.
But like underneath it, it has like it's got Do or Die and Earn the Merge and Hourglass. And then I showed you guys earlier. But
on there?
Yes, I know. And then I have Let's Make an All Girls Alliance. The nice thing about
put that shirt away.
I know.
No, I think that's a fine shirt.
It's fine.
Lindsay
it's fine.
And I are making an alliance.
Yes. I thought we were already in one. So the nice thing about I know. The nice thing about the sale of these shirts is every dime that Kevin makes off of these, he's donating to Give Kids the World Village. So if anybody,
so
I know, he's absolutely amazing. He's probably made like 30 or 40 different designs, and they're all incredible. Wow. I've got like 4 more hoodies that are on their way to my house right now. So I'll share this with you guys later, but if anybody's interested, like, do not hesitate to DM me. I'll share it on Twitter. I just shared it on my Instagram yesterday. They just came in and the fit's amazing. The fabric is great quality. I haven't taken it off. My daughter actually wore this to school today. So anyway, didn't mean to hijack the podcast, but if anybody's interested, it's for a great cause.
Well,
I thought it was going to say the New Era tour and then just say Fiji.
Wow. I thought you were going to be nice tonight, David.
I mean, that's the tour. The New Era tour. it's not going to last very long if everyone keeps quitting.
So,
but I love the shirt.
And we'll talk about Jessica's shirt in a little while.
I know. I want to purchase one.
Okay. We'll tell you exactly where
we'll have to change this to why blank quit.
Yeah.
Quit.
And they still lost. It's still lost.
That is fair.
Yeah. Now, other than that, I want to start by talking about the swap overall, because we ended up with 3 very different scenarios in the tribes, although 2 looked similar at first. New Lulu has 4 old Bello. As I said on Twitter, the Bello got yellow. And plus Caleb. New Reba has 4 old Reba, plus Sean. And New Bello had the 2-2-1 mix. Now, we'll obviously discuss a lot more about what happened at Reba. But clearly there was some dissent about whether or not they should stay Reba strong. On the other tribe, Katura, before the pick, said Bello should stay strong. And we all knew she meant except for Bruce. And then she was still stuck with Bruce on New Lulu. So, you know, that pot is going to boil over at some point. We just don't know when. If I had to guess, it's going to go all the way to the merge. I think these 2 are going to keep butting. I'm sorry.
It's way too much of a storyline for it to just like fizzle out. Something is definitely going to happen here for sure.
Yes. And then we have New Bello, which has that interesting situation of everyone fighting for Emily's love, which put her in a much different position than she was before.
Yes. This is fascinating. Honestly, I rewatched it and I thought to myself, this is what I think happened. This is just my conspiracy theory brain kicking in. I feel like whoever wrapped up the buffs put them all together with their colors. Like they put all the yellow and all the red and all the blue just to see if they could like actually affect the divisions, because how insane was that like breakdown? I really feel like there was something with the way that those, it wasn't like someone just mixed them all up. It was like, we're going to put them in little piles and then see if we can. It's almost like when you cheat at Uno, right? Where you like, you don't shuffle it correctly.
I am not aware of cheating at Uno. I don't know.
Oh, well, listen, if you have children, right?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the problem with Uno. When you play a game and you get all the way through, and then you're like, okay, now we have to reshuffle the cards. And you give them to your child who doesn't know how to shuffle, and they don't shuffle well, and then you dole out the cards. You get all the reds in one stack and all the green because they're not shuffled correctly.
That's why they didn't shuffle. That's why I always shuffled.
Well, we'd like to try to teach our children a thing or two, right? So they can learn how to shuffle. No, you don't want to pass on some.
They still hand me the cards to shuffle when we play card games.
Aren't they like 25?
Yes. I mean, to be fair, to be fair, I
no, you're fine.
I was a poker dealer as a side gig for a while. So
stop it. You're a juggler and you're a card shark?
No, just a dealer. Card dealer, poker dealer. Let's be clear about this.
All right.
What were you saying, Lindsay?
I've always wondered like what the stacking is like when they're giving the buffs out. Like I've always wondered if when Jeff's like handing each one of them the plate, like is he moving the plate around? You know, is it like subliminal messaging? Is he trying to like suggest which one they should take? To the point where I've like rewound it and like tried to figure it out. I know it's not there, but it's just you know, especially seeing the way that it turned out. Yeah.
Well, you say that, but Kristen Hubicki on the post show recap of it, he had I guess messaged in Rob, and he ran a quick algorithm, and this was the 8th most likely mix.
Stop it!
Really?
Yeah. So
what?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So
look at this.
I mean, almost any mix, we'd be sitting here. Like if they had been perfectly evenly split, we'd be like, "Wow, could you believe how evenly split they were?" But because they were the opposite, you know,
it's not even just the breakdown as far as like the color scheme of it all. It's the people that managed to stay together. And it's the people who didn't stay together. I was like when I saw Drew and Austin were still together, I was like, hold up. This is like your dream when you have like a close second, like you're my guy, you're my girl, like we're doing this, we're gonna go all the way to the end, and then oh my gosh, we're still together when we swap. What an incredible moment for the two of them. And then to also have just Bruce and Katurah. I mean, come on. Like, I mean, it's just, it was like the survivor gods were smiling down on all of us and said, you know what? We want some of these things to work out okay. And we want some other things to blow up. So here we are. We're going to sprinkle some deliciousness in here. I just really was like watching this going, how the hell did this happen in this way? Well, and for Caleb, I'm sorry, I just have to throw something too. Caleb, like, he just won the world as far as I'm concerned with like getting the group of people that he got. Like, it's just like Caleb is just like riding high and just loving life. And I'm just very, very intrigued to see how this all shakes out for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there is some hindsight bias here. If Caleb had ended up on Reba, we'd have been talking about, oh, see, all his work at Reba paid off because he is with Austin, the person that he wanted to be with, the one that Sabiyah was worried about him being with. And now he's not with those people. And also, I think there's something, that can be said for the editing, because let's say that the mix goes a little differently and Austin ends up with D instead of Drew. Well, then we might have seen scenes earlier about how close Austin and D were. I mean, they didn't find the, they didn't do quite the same thing, but I mean, Jessica, Lindsay, the editing doesn't show all of your allies. It only shows some of them. And so like, even on this episode, which we'll talk about later, it sounded to me like Dee and Julie had a women's alliance with Jay. Fake or real, I don't know, but it seemed like they were referencing that as it was something that had happened in the past and we just didn't know about. And of course, if that alliance had succeeded, I'm guessing it doesn't, but if it would, if it was, we would have heard more about it. And so I think that, that's part of it too, is if Katurah and Bruce ended up on different tribes, and then one of them got voted out and there was never a blow up, we might have seen a little bit about them, but we probably wouldn't have seen everything that we saw leading up to this point.
That's fair. So, but Drew and Austin do share like 3 advantages together.
Yes. That is true.
So there's that.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah. Getting back to Emily, who, went from the bottom to the top here.
Right.
I have to say, it was great to see Emily smile and laugh and celebrating and having fun out there. It really was like she was completely reborn.
Caleb needs to write a self-help book or something when he gets off the island, like just to teach people to just be their best self, because she truly did a complete flip and does seem like genuinely like so comfortable with herself now and presenting herself in the way that she is. It's very impressive to see. So I was very pleased with all of that. And she's now with Austin and Drew. I'm really, really loving that trio.
Yeah. Now there's, you were mentioning already, or we were mentioning already, a different duo. And that of course is Bruce and Katurah. Now, Lindsay, it reminds me a little bit of a couple people on your tribe.
Oh, like who?
I don't know. You tell me. Does it remind you of anyone on your tribe that maybe?
It definitely does. It definitely does. Unfortunately, yes, it reminds me of Cassidy and Gio. But it wasn't as bad. I mean, I almost feel bad for Bruce. I wonder every time I sit there and I see a Katurah confessional, I'm like, what is Bruce thinking right now? What's their relationship now that they're off the island?
Yeah, like right now. Yes.
Yeah. Like, are they friends? Is she texting him every time she's doing a confessional? And she's like, I'm so sorry. Because you do say things out there that you don't mean in the heat of the moment. I always separate the person. True. Yeah, you're right. But you do have to separate in-game personality with out of the game personality. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, sometimes people do show their true colors out there when you're stripped down to absolutely nothing. But there's game mode and then there's non-game mode. And I have that. I had relationships like people that I I mean, I got along with everybody, but people that I wasn't super close with in the game, you know, you have a different relationship with them outside of the game. Even Owen and James right now, like they're great friends, and they had a scuffle out on the island, but you work through that, right? Especially after the game, especially during that time between the game being over and the game airing. And all the things that you do together when you're trying to bond before the show airs, and you're praying that, like that one time where you sit down in a confessional and you're talking junk about someone, you're like, please don't let that air. Please don't let that air. And I remember with our season, we all went to New Orleans for the weekend before our season aired. And we all kind of like took turns saying like, okay, if you said anything about me bad, like go ahead and tell me now. Like, let's just go ahead and clear the air. And I swear there's somebody, I'm not going to name names, but there is one person who I know like wasn't honest with me. And they were like, I didn't say anything about you. And I know they were like, let's just hope that they don't air it. And if they do, then I'll have to like clean up my mess later. But I'm not telling Lindsay what I said about her in the confessional. So
they were still in game mode then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, there were several amazing scenes related to this battle, you know, like when she cross-examined Caleb like some sort of a lawyer.
I love that. I loved it.
Crazy.
I know. Just
so
to
good.
ensure that Bruce wasn't lying about what happened on the jury. And also, now, Bruce obviously didn't take it this way, and I didn't take it this way as I was watching, but I also think it was to see what Caleb himself would say without prompting. Now, you know, Bruce was offended, and I do think that was her main intent, but anybody who has ever seen a cop show knows that you always want the witnesses to give their stories independently. And not that you would have any experience in that regard, Jessica.
No, not at all. Oh my goodness. No, I do find it really quite fascinating that this is one thing that we've discussed a lot, is that it's like the revisiting of the truth, right? Where when you do have a swap like this, or you have a merge, it gives people an opportunity to go and like fact check, right? Like they can go, oh, by the way, so this is what so-and-so, you know, they went on the journey and what happened. And you can make people feel really uncomfortable, right? Because Bruce is sitting there going, oh gosh, am I going to get called out on something right now? Because if Katora doesn't like Bruce, which it appears that she has some issues with Bruce, this could truly have a negative effect on his game. And he even said it. He's like, wow, now that, you know, he paused and said this could be an issue because she's clearly kind of calling him out on something. And so you can put someone in a very, very uncomfortable situation, even if they had been honest the whole time, just because you're calling it into question, because they can't confirm it really, because they can say, well, this is what I did. But then when someone else comes in and says, well, this is what I did, then you have to try to compare and contrast. And so I think it was a great move for her if she's interested in making Bruce out to be more of a threat than he is. And you're calling him out in front of the new guy, right? You're all of a sudden you're like, hey, Caleb, so like, let's talk about that thing.
Yeah.
And Bruce is sitting right there going, oh my God, what is he going to throw me under the bus? So for her, I think it was a great move for her game, because she wants to out Bruce and she also wants to further herself with Caleb. So she's given all the tea, which I just think is lovely.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to that point, I wasn't sure if this was a one-sided rivalry, and maybe it was, because afterwards Bruce was like, oh, she doesn't love me as much as everyone else does.
I think it's very one-sided. I like I said, that's why I almost feel bad for Bruce. I mean, I do feel bad for Bruce. I almost wonder, is anybody telling him about this? You know, people talk out there. And people love to say, hey, so-and-so is talking bad about you behind your back.
I mean, it sounds like no. And the other thing is, she has mentioned that she has been careful, you know, to only, not necessarily to raise his name, but like if someone else mentions his name, to pounce on it. And so, you know, it would be hard for someone to say, oh, she brought you up, when it was them who brought you up originally.
But she brought him up to Caleb.
Caleb,
she dropped his name immediately, like, okay, it's Bruce,
right? Yeah,
like,
and that
by the way,
that's dangerous. Well, but that was after Bruce had grabbed Caleb first, so she was more responding to it rather than being the first one.
Well, I guess, I mean, but here's the other thing too, and Lindsay, you can attest to this. Sometimes when you are walking with someone, you're literally just walking with someone, you know, like just because like two people happen to go that direction, maybe they really, you know, like it doesn't always mean that it's like game mode.
It's always strategy, and they're always looking for an idol.
Apparently. I mean, I was just thinking, I'm like, maybe they're just like, still like, what's your favorite color? Like, what do you do for a living? Like, where are you from? Trying to get to know each other. And immediately she's like, you know, Couture's like, I'm onto this. I'm so onto this right now. So
I mean, she was right.
It is interesting. Oh, I'm not saying that she was wrong, but you know, there are those times that like you might just be having a regular conversation with someone. Sorry, okay, go ahead.
No, you're fine. However, I feel like with the new era, because everything's so sped up and the amount of times or the opportunities that you have to have these one-on-one conversations with people, you have to take advantage of them immediately, because you're not sure if you're going to have that opportunity before you have to go to tribal, or before
that's fair.
You know, a boat comes and you have to go on a journey. I mean, gone are the days where you have a lot of down days.
Oh God, those were my favorite days. I know. Those days.
I know. I was thinking a lot about it while I was showering today. I'm trying to remember why I was thinking about that. I had a point, and I know what it is, but we're going to talk about it when we talk about Sean.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Couture had previously made sure we know her position on Bruce, which is annoying, and it really was funny to see her go on and on and on and on about it. And I think last week, or maybe the week before, I mentioned that I would both be Bruce and be annoyed by Bruce if I were out there. And the Flint thing was a perfect example to me, because I might make a quick joke.
That was a terrible joke for him to make.
I know, but I might make a quick joke of about losing the Flint, but it would be quick. He made it, and
a hole in his pocket. It was a whole thing.
Kept it going, and I think that's what earned the look of disdain that we got from Couture, which will forever be gift and memed. And in fact, she's already used on me once on Twitter in a reply. So
love it. She's giving me serious Courtney vibes. Somebody did actually put this into the Twitterverse, and I was like, oh my gosh.
That. Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, that is so spot on. So spot on.
Her with John Robert.
Yes. Love it.
Oh God. Yes.
Yes. Very much enjoy.
But don't we expect Bruce? He's a dad. He's got like, no pun intended, like a pocket full of dad jokes out there. And that's what he wants. He's got his little kids around, and he's got an audience, and he's telling his little dad jokes.
Bruce is living his best life for sure.
More than dad jokes, though. I mean, doing the robot, falling on the boat, losing. My kids would disown me if I did all of that. I mean, and, I mean, it goes above and beyond. And of course, apparently he's ordering people around, which Carolyn said when she popped into the post-show podcast. Carolyn said that she told him, don't do that. I only knew you for like 12 hours, but I could already tell, don't do that, and
but this is something that we talk about a lot is that there is an idea, like kind of check yourself a little bit, know what your strengths are, but also know what your potential annoyances are that you might bring into a space. And if you don't recognize that about yourself when you go out into an island and play a game like Fiji, or, like play a game like Survivor, but like, you are definitely going to find yourself in a tough spot if you don't already have that realization that maybe not everyone will love this part of my personality. So maybe he just didn't talk to people before he went out there to say, hey, keep that in check a little bit.
Or, I mean, everybody else on the tribe seems to be loving it, and Couture isn't saying anything publicly. So in his mind, he's a comedian with a willing audience.
And that's fair. But remember, I think we mentioned this, maybe it was 2 episodes ago, but there was somebody else that there was a quick little comment that was made during a challenge. And it was the people who sat out. Yeah. And someone was like, Bruce is so annoying. And I was like, wait a second, why is someone else talking about Bruce?
But again, that wasn't to him. So he doesn't know.
No, but what I'm saying though is like, so it may not just be Katora that's recognizing it. It may just be that that's the story. That's Katora's storyline.
That's the storyline. We're not saying what everybody else is saying about Bruce.
Right. It's just Katora.
All the rest, everybody's playing Survivor. Oh, you're so funny, Bruce. You're amazing. You're hysterical.
And she's like,
oh my God, when can we vote this guy out? You know.
I don't think he's annoying personally. Bruce, if you're listening, I love you and adore you. I think your dad jokes are hilarious. I thought the flip joke was hilarious. I was dying laughing. So
I'm not saying that, but I'm just reading the room. You know, we're like,
yes.
Like Katora is definitely like, I've had enough of this.
Yeah, I will admit,
Bruce is like, I'm living my best life.
I will admit he got me on the Flint because it went on for so long. Then I thought he wasn't joking anymore.
I know. I was like, oh my God, they lost the Flint.
Yeah, I was like, after all that, they lost the Flint. And so he did get me on that. But if I were there, I would have been like, I'm going to strangle you in your sleep. So
that's where you punish him by making him collect all the firewood.
There you go.
Because you know they didn't have firewood ready before that.
Right.
Oh gosh.
All right. We're already a half hour in, but is there anything else you wanted to discuss before we move on?
No, I think we can. Okay. Let's get to the complaining component of things.
It is complaining normally. It is time for Jeff Probst is wrong about blank.
Oh, we're doing that now? Okay.
Well, normally it would be. But he didn't have any separate interviews this time. And in listening to his podcast, I didn't notice anything he was particularly wrong about. I actually agreed with his assessment of Sean's quit, though what Sean then said, presuming it's true, makes both of us incorrect. But I don't have anything this week, but I at least wanted to mention the segment.
I do feel though that there is, and again, I'm just as someone who's played the game and listening to him, he was talking about how things were very structured and that if there's going to be a swap, it's already scheduled and it has to stay scheduled and it has to be scheduled. And I'm sitting there going, maybe he's just saying that. Because I mean, I understand the need to have things scheduled, but at the same time, there seems to be moments in the Survivor universe where, boy, the swaps come at a really convenient time. I mean, really convenient for me. I remember thanking the good Lord Jesus that there was a swap. I was like, whoo, that was so perfect. And, you know, so I just wonder sometimes if they're like, we could do the swap now, or we could do it over here. And this looks like a better option now. So let's do it here as opposed to waiting till here.
I mean, that's, we discussed it last week that, I thought, and I know they have this, but an if then chart, if this happens, then this happens.
And that's what I feel like it's more structured like that they have options of depending on, it's like,
right.
Those books. So is it Choose Your Own Adventure?
Yes. And
I love those.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he insisted on the podcast that it was pre-planned. And maybe it was. I can't say for sure. But he also said, he said the one thing that kind of counters, he said, we already have these big challenge builds ready. It's not like we could change those on a whim. Yeah, you have them ready, but do you have them ready for 3-person tribes? Because can they really be done? I mean, could a 3-person tribe have lifted that cage? Would there have been any shot in hell of a 3-person tribe lifting one of those cages?
Right. Yeah.
No.
But it's not happening.
Here's the thing. When I did like months and months of research trying to decide like if I really, really wanted to go out and play Survivor, just because the game has changed so much in the 23 years that I've wanted to play. And I remember a couple years ago, I came across maybe like a Reddit post or something, but somebody had said that because Survivor is a game show in the aspect that they have reward money and with the contracts and stuff, that they do have to outline the rules of the game before it starts in order for it to be quote unquote fair. I'm not sure how accurate that is or not, but I've always just had that in the back of my mind whenever I'm seeing when everyone's like, when something happened and they're like, oh, they just did that at the last minute. And I'm like, I'm not sure they can do that.
And
so I want to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, that is true. Or at least was, I heard there was a change to some of the game show laws that like Now, Big Brother doesn't quite fit into it, but I think Survivor still does. But the if-then chart would still work for that, as long as it's written up ahead of time.
And that's what I think it is. I think
they could say, if this happens, then this happens.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that challenge would have just been another obvious Lulu loss. They would have just come out there, looked at it, and been like, never mind, just send us to tribal council now. And it would have been Sean leaving. So it still would have been the same outcome.
Look at you. You have just figured it all out. I love
it. There's that if then. If this happens, then Sean leaves.
And honestly, though, it's not that I dislike that idea either. Like, I'm not trying to knock this idea that if Survivor has an if then we do this, if that we do this kind of approach. But I just feel like you can't lock yourself into certain decisions because, as you indicated, Bloomberg, like that one challenge with 3 people would have been utterly impossible. So I do feel like you have to have options. And that's what I'm curious is that if there are options, because there are certain things that, and Lindsay, I'm sure can also speak to this, that once you go out there and you're about to be in a challenge, then you understand how the challenges actually work. Where like, it's not like you just go up and stand in a spot. No, you get measured and they do your height. And there's extra components to it that you never see when you're like watching the show. And so I just think it's interesting that there's got to be some like option available. Otherwise, things just wouldn't be able to work.
Well, right. And we've talked about this. We had, when Voce was on talking about the fairness judge. That clip, one of my most viewed TikToks, that he talks about the fairness judge that they have, like, oh, this group is standing in the shade. The other groups have to stand in the shade. This group got sunscreen. The other groups get sunscreen. This one gets water.
That did not exist on my season. I just want y'all to know. There was
did it not?
Judge. No,
what?
There was not. We actually had a challenge that right before we were going out to it, I went to the water well to fill up everyone's water, and there was a dead lizard in the water well. And so I scooped it out, and then I went and I told production, by the way, dead lizard. And they were like, don't drink the water. I wasn't going to. So they're like, we'll take care of it. Just leave it alone. Not a big deal. But none of us had water. And so we went to this challenge and we kept saying, can we please get water? We're going to do this challenge. And nobody brought us water. So we went into a challenge and we never got water, and they never brought us water. And we were like, what is going on? So no fairness judge there. I'm just saying we didn't have one.
Yeah. Or they weren't as fair about it. They may have had someone, but they weren't quite as good at their job.
I'm just, but also like that wasn't even something that I didn't know even existed until Voce talked about it. Like, I didn't know that was something that Survivor has. So it is interesting to see, because I think it makes sense to have it. Obviously, it certainly makes sense. But yes, it did not exist in season 3.
Yes. All right. Well, before we move on to Sean here, we do need to mention that the rules we're about to discuss come in a shorter and much more colorful version.
Yes, they do.
You can go to robhasawebsite.com/yxlostfeed. Scroll down and click on the poster, and then you can order it that way. You keep scrolling, you can get the poster on a t-shirt, or you can keep scrolling. Well, not or, and you can keep scrolling and get the t-shirt that we have right here.
Yay!
So yes,
good luck.
Yes. And so again, go to robhasawebsite.com/yxlostfeed and scroll on down.
Yes. Shop. Love it.
Those are good prices too.
They are great
Shirts
prices.
aren't cheap anymore. Yeah. For $20, it's not bad. 24.
Yeah. And yes. And it all goes to a good cause.
Rob. and Rob has a podcast. It's a great cause.
Keeping us on the air. Yes.
Yes, so, that's what I mean. This is a great cause.
That's the goal.
My dog agrees.
All right. Well, Sean came into the game with plans on how he was going to play, but also thoughts that being on Survivor would do things for him besides the game itself. Then he was on the fun but always losing Lulu tribe, followed by losing again after the swap that was supposed to make things better for him. While he came to his fourth tribal council in a good position, everything changed in an instant when he announced he wanted to quit. So what happened? How did Sean get to that point? It's time to figure out why Sean lost. We begin with the first and most important rule, scheme and plot. Last week, we mentioned that however things might have seemed to TV viewers on the original Lulu tribe, Sabaya and Sean were the tight pair. And it's good that Sean made that alliance early on. He just didn't know that Caleb had meanwhile been getting closer to Emily to the point that they could pull that huge blindside on Sabaya rather than Caleb being the one that was going to get a surprise. And indeed, Sean voiced to us at the beginning of this episode that idea, while he also tried to pretend that it was all Sabaya and he didn't want to do it, etc. To me, there were two funny things that happened here. One, Emily pointed out as he was saying, "Oh, Caleb, I didn't want to vote you out." And Emily's like, oh, so it was me then. And
loved that.
Right.
Yes. And then
he's
two, and then two, neither of them bought his act anyway, so it didn't matter.
No.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I felt like it was just too much. It was really the hug, bring it in, like, oh, I love you guys so much. And yeah, guess what? You're just busted at that point. You tried to vote someone out, and you can be like, yeah, that was a great move. Kudos to you. We tried. Caleb, you're a huge threat. We were worried about you. Sorry. Right. But then it was like, I'm going to blame everyone else and say it wasn't me. But it was definitely partly you.
You always blame the person who's gone. When I retired, I told everyone, I'm like, just blame me. Whatever happens. I told my staff, I said, just blame me. You're going to do it anyway.
That's incredible.
I'm just going to give you permission.
I love this.
And so I was just
Bloomberg did it.
Yeah. What do I care?
How long can
I'm
they
not
use
there
you
anymore.
as an excuse, Bloomberg? How long can they use you as an excuse?
Forever.
Yeah. I even wrote down like what Emily had said about Sean. She said that he was friendly and gregarious. He's like a chameleon. He's always changing. But she just didn't see it.
Chameleons have spots.
Chameleons?
She said a chameleon.
No, they change colors.
Yeah, they change colors.
He said he's a chameleon. He can change his spots. And I was like, I think you're mixing your metaphors here. I think you're mixing your chameleons and leopards.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Fair. But it just came off as not genuine and something that even I realized out there on the island is like, you can be genuinely nice and people are still gonna question you, especially if they don't have enough time to get to know you. Because no matter who you are, you're out there to play a game, to backstab and lie and do all these things. So I think it takes some time for somebody to really get to know you out there, to understand that you truly are a genuine person. And I just don't think people were buying what Sean was selling.
No. But after the swap, he had new opportunities. Now, the odds are pretty good that if you get put on a tribe with 4 people out of a 6-person tribe that has never had to vote anyone out, there are going to be cracks. And indeed there were. In fact, there were actually 2 of them, since both Sifu and Jay were on the outs from the main Reba alliance. But Sean and Jay hit it off right away. And it also appeared that Dee and Julie might have convinced Jay that they were in that women's alliance that I mentioned earlier. And so right there, boom, easy majority. All of this seems to have been spurred by Sifu's behavior that we saw a little of early on, immediately hunting for the idol and hiding while listening to other people and then getting discovered. And he tried making it into a joke. And while that certainly fits with his fun-loving personality, the others were more like Katura looking at Bruce. Obviously, Dee and Julie know he doesn't have the tribe idol, but they weren't going to tell Jay that. And even without that issue, they just didn't trust him. So all of that, very long-winded weighing of saying, yeah, Sean had an opening, and he immediately worked his way into it. Within a day, the Reba women were like, here, take Sifu's spot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I also feel like this is not necessarily even Sean's move. It's more like it was the ladies that were like, hey, this is what we want to do. And it actually took a lot of convincing by J. Maya to talk to Dee and to talk to Julie to say, hey, no, I think this is the road we need to go down. This is the path we need to take. And so I don't know if it was necessarily so much his doing, although he certainly went along with it, but there was a connection he made with J. Maya and it seemed natural and it flowed well. But I would give more credit to J. Maya for making this happen than necessarily Sean.
Could we say it was all three things? Like, could we say that Sean came and joined this tribe? They loved his vibe. You know, they all got along with him. Yeah. He seems to have a great personality. I know in the outside world, I would love Sean. Sean was actually one of my favorite people when I was going through the preseason press and listening to interviews and stuff. I loved Sean. And then you also want to look at where J. Maya was. You know, this was her way to get rid of Sifu. But I also blame Sifu. You know, he was playing a shady game. And so when you've got this like perfect storm of things happening, that's when the magic happens.
Yes.
And that's when we get like really exciting vote outs, really exciting backstabbing, really exciting tribal councils.
Well, when we should.
And then this happens.
We should. Right. So, or a quit.
Which makes me even more mad about the quit.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe next episode. So, you know, with that thought in mind, we can I do think the perfect storm is a good way to explain it. Now we can go to the second rule, which says not to scheme a plot too much and to keep your scheming secret. Lindsay, did you see any issues for Sean in this rule?
No, not at all.
And
I don't know if, you know, because he was leaving, they just decided they didn't want to show him having any strategy or having strategic conversations with anyone. Like, it's kind of a lost cause at this point, knowing what the outcome of the game would be. And if it doesn't fit in with the storyline of how people get to the end, then why are we wasting screen time? And maybe he was just scheming with Sabaya. I don't know. I always want to give the benefit of the doubt to maybe it happened and we just didn't see it. I don't know. I don't. I mean, yes, I think he was scheming with Sabaya. I don't think he was scheming and plotting too much with her. Right.
Other than, I mean, we could say that he shared in the blame for backstabbing Caleb too soon, as we talked about Sabaya doing last week.
That's true.
He was clearly following her lead. As much as he was blaming her when she was gone, I think it was also to her credit that she was doing most of that work there.
Yeah.
I mean, his only other choices besides following her would have been to take a hard stand against it and cause a fight with his closest ally, or completely turn on her by telling Caleb. And, you know, neither of those were good options. And he did not seem to be quite that confrontational.
Right. And that's a fair point.
So, all right. As we move ahead, we're going to do something a little different here and jump to the fourth rule. We're
going to go out of order.
Yeah. Let's go. Wild Friday night.
It is a wild Friday night. I get yelled at when I try to go out of order. Jessica, follow
I have
the
that
rules.
effect on people, Jessica.
Yes.
I love this. Lindsay needs to come back more often. We have a Girls Alliance. We're out of order. She and I are going to be kvetching in a little bit.
Yes.
I love this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, the reason for this is that I think our thoughts in the third will make more sense in light of what we discuss in the fourth, because this rule tells players not to let their emotions control them. And given what happened here, it sure seems obvious this was the major factor at play. Sean said he came into Survivor to reclaim the lost time in his life, which is in and of itself an emotional reason as compared to, say, winning the game. Headed to and within this fourth tribal council, Sean said he had kind of an epiphany that he didn't need to use Survivor to erase his past, which is true. What came across next was a bit confusing. And so this is where we get what we saw on TV and what he said in the interviews. And, you know, I'm going with his interviews make sense. the clarifications, because what he said out there was a bit discombobulated and really didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, missing his husband. Everybody knows you're not rushing back to the States after that.
Right.
And that's immediately what everyone said. Yes. Some people just miss their family visits, as a matter of fact. But
this crazy thing.
Yeah. But what he was trying to say, according to his interviews, was no, it wasn't that. It was just that he was thinking of his life at home and how he didn't need Survivor, and he wasn't very good at voicing that in the moment. And then there was the other question of, did he know he was going to be voted out, which was my initial thing, and also what Jeff thought that he believed. He knew he was going to be voted out, and therefore he took it into his own hands. But Jeff said, no, as far as we knew, Sifu was going. Right. And Sean said, no, I was very confident that Sifu was going. So, but in that moment, according to his interviews, his emotions overwhelmed him, and he decided that the experience he'd had was enough, and he was at peace with leaving them. I know you're going to have opinions on that, but before we get to those, any thoughts on just, his emotions in general?
That caused him to quit?
Yes. Any thoughts on this rule?
I know you're trying to limit my response, and I feel like Lindsay feels the same. Notice how quiet.
Okay, then we'll just move ahead here.
Oh, I'm just waiting for my turn. There's no limiting my opinion on this. I've got all the opinions,
and I love that, because Bloomberg is being very shady right now. He's asking us a very specific question in order to avoid us providing our opinion until later.
That's right. I'm being Katura. Wait. Let me ask you this way.
Should I start dropping some dad jokes right now and like losing
do the robot? So Sean also expressed something in his interviews that I wasn't expecting, because as I mentioned earlier, I don't think we've ever seen it, which is regret. Because, and I said this earlier, but everybody that I remember personally, and this is not just from Survivor, but other shows too, has come out defiant or as outright a-holes. And, they were like, I'm happy with my decision. And I did it for this reason, and et cetera. So it was refreshing to see Sean say, no, you know what? There definitely is that level of regret. And he wishes he could have had a different mindset about it in that time. But unlike that hourglass on your shirt, Lindsay, you cannot go back in time.
You cannot.
Now, going into the opinion part, I'll go first, and then I'll just sit back. So I want to expand on what I said about Hannah's quit for people who may not remember, or just in general. Because I feel like, in addition to using some of her reasoning, Hannah quitting also made Sean feel like it was okay.
Ooh,
kind of like the Nyanka and Purple Kelly quit way back in Survivor Nicaragua 13 years ago. Now, for those who may not remember, Nyanka had decided she'd had enough. She told Jeff, I'm quitting. Then Kelly Shin, better known as Purple Kelly, said, oh, I want to quit too. Now, as an aside, and just as I was reminding myself of this situation, I saw this. One of her tribe mates told Kelly if she left, she would forever be known as a quitter. But I think a lot more people know her as the person who changed the meaning of the word purple when it came to reality TV edits.
Yeah.
But anyway, she admitted, Purple Kelly had, that she had thought about quitting since day one and made a number of excuses in her interview with me and others afterwards. One of those people that I said didn't really own what they had done. But the point is, if Nyanka had not quit first, I do not think Kelly would have either. She didn't say anything until Nyanka said, I'm quitting.
And that's fair. But
yeah,
also,
when safety in numbers.
Right. How angry was Jeff Probst?
Yeah, Jeff's a different person. And we'll get to that too.
I know, but I do think that the response to the quit also has a lot to do with then someone following suit, right?
Maybe.
If he's looking at the fact that, like, oh, Hannah did it, and it was fine. Nobody got mad at Hannah.
He was angry at Nyanka, And as a matter of fact, I think what happened was he said something like, "Oh, does anyone else want to quit?" And that's when Kelly was like, "I do." So,
I missed that Jeff. Like I want the Jeff to come back that is angry when people decide.
But didn't y'all hear his interview about why he doesn't get angry with the castmates anymore when they quit? Jessica, did you hear what he said?
Because he figures we
didn't
will.
hear this.
No, he said, look, back in the day when people were quitting, he's like, we didn't have social media. He's like, I had to not only express my distaste and anger for the quit. He's like, but I had to represent fans as a whole. And he said, you guys can do that now. He's like, I don't have to worry about being rage angry at these players because you guys are going to do that for me.
Yeah.
He's like, you guys are going to go on social media. Yeah. And he's right. And I was like, okay.
Jeff's
but also,
doxing these people. Yeah.
His face lives rent free in my mind right now.
Yeah.
All week. The look that he gave Sean when Sean was like, vote me out.
It was amazing.
You know, I can't even do it. I would try, but like I would fail miserably.
Yes.
It's so good. It
is so good.
I love Jeff.
But I do think though, if there was, and I understand his point about, you know, the social media component, he has to represent everyone when there wasn't, but he is also the face of the game, and the players respond to him. And I'm sure you can remember how it felt, Lindsay, when he was asking you questions and being in that space with him. And the last thing you want to do as a player is offend that guy, right? Like, I don't want to
disappoint him.
Yes.
I would rather disappoint him than offend him. You know, he's Jeff. But, you know, this is something that I try to consider. Number one, how new of a fan is Sean?
Sean is, I think, a longtime fan. From what he said, I think he's like a lifetime fan. I can't remember.
I couldn't remember that.
I can't remember. I thought he said something in his interviews about
Let me go to my papers.
As opposed to Hannah. Hannah was a pandemic fan.
Right. Yes. And the second I found that out, it all made sense.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
But I wonder about Sean and how long of a fan he is.
I feel like he's I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, I do think that if, at least subconsciously, because I don't think Sean was thinking this in his own head. Well, Hannah quit. I guess I can too. I think it's subconscious. The idea of quitting as a viable outcome was out there. I think if it hadn't happened, and specifically hadn't happened in front of him, then he wouldn't have suddenly decided to do it out of the blue. But he knew that option was on the table.
Yeah. That's because Jeff didn't give anyone a hard time about it.
Well, yeah. Now, okay. Now's the time that you have been waiting for. Earlier I mentioned we'd get into our own thoughts. And so here we are. So like I said, I'll give mine and then I'll duck. So when we were discussing the Hannah quit on episode 1, I noted, you know, something you two both know. I've been covering Survivor since the beginning. I remember all those early quits and even people from other TV shows. And every time I or another writer inducted them into the Reality TV Hall of Shame website that I also ran. And much like I said for Hannah, if I were still running that website now, Sean would probably be inducted there too for consistency, you know, based on, I mean, we always had a vote of the contributors. I can't imagine the vote not going in that way. But I'll echo what I said about Hannah here too. I want to be understanding that this was not what Sean thought it would be, and that he was in a certain mindset. And he now looks back on that and he wishes he could change it. On the other hand, this is Survivor 45.
Yeah.
And he should have understood. I also feel like Sean somewhat used Hannah's excuse by saying he would leave so the rest of them could play their games.
Yeah.
Now, even without going down the path of the dominoes of him taking a spot that someone else could have had, I want to point out that he was part of the game plans for several of these other players he left behind. And I know Steven mentioned this on Know-It-Alls a bit, but Sean said he wanted them to play, but then he changed their games by not only leaving, but but doing it in a way that caused confusion and also gave Sifu information he didn't have before.
Yeah.
It's like a poker player quitting a tournament and then on the way out leaning over and whispering, hey, that guy turns his Oreo when he's bluffing. You know, he's giving all the information there. But once again, even with that, I'm not as worked up about it as I would have been in the past. Maybe it's because I'm mellowing. Maybe it's because I've been seeing so many of these by now. Maybe it's because he's otherwise a nice guy and, you know, wasn't a jerk in the interviews. I'm certainly upset that he quit. I'm certainly upset with the way it happened. I do feel part of it falls on Jeff, but not for the reason you were mentioning, Jessica, but rather because he has been framing Survivor as an experience rather than a game. He even on his podcast said that if Sean found a deeper connection to his husband, that is ultimately what Survivor's about, the experience. No, Jeff, that is not what Survivor's about. Survivor
so you did disagree with him.
Yes, I just didn't put it into that section. I wanted to say that. It's playing and winning is what it's about. It is a TV show. It is a competition. People can experience it, but that it isn't an experience. It isn't Disney World. Okay. Right. If it were about the experience, then extend it back to 39 days or longer and don't have a prize. Just let people go and hang out, you know? And I want to point out that, of course, not everybody thinks about it as an experience. I know that there's been more talk of that in the new era, but certainly, you know, I'm going to predict Lindsay will not agree with Jeff here. And I would go so far as to say most don't, but some do. And Jeff encourages it in the way he talks about it.
Yes.
But, you know, especially for what we're doing here, everyone needs to remember these are rules for winning, not having an experience. The first rule isn't buy a fast pass so you can get on the rides more often. It's scheme and plot, you know? And so, you know, that is where I am now. So which of you wants to go first? Because this is going to be interesting. I feel like you two share a lot of thoughts. So this will be interesting.
Well, I'll let the guest go first.
I appreciate that. And we can take turns because I feel like we're going to kind of feed off of each other. But while we're on the subject of experiences, yes, first and foremost, this is a game. And when I applied for Survivor numerous times, one being season 2, I wanted to play the game. I'm a competitor. Yes. It is in my blood. When Dr. Liza was doing my psychological evaluation, she said, Lindsay, you are a Survivor girl. Like you are the epitome of what we're looking for in Survivor because you're competitive and you're tough and you won't give up and, you know, all the different things that they want in a Survivor player. But as the years go by and I'm part of the Survivor community, the overwhelming theme that you get when you speak or follow these players is, you know, when you only have there's 18 spots, but only one person's going to win. So you're also looking at those other 17 people and you're examining their experience in the game. And they're talking about how this is a once in a lifetime opportunity and how it'll change you for the rest of your life. And, you know, not only did I want to win the game and win $1 million and prove to myself that I could outwit and outplay and outlast everybody, I wanted what all these other people had been talking about for years, which is this like experience that you cannot replicate or replace in your everyday life. Okay. So even Sean said it. He said, this is the true adventure of a lifetime. Well, Sean, okay. When I think about my husband, when I think about my kids, when I think about my nursing career, those are true adventures of a lifetime too. But you can have all of it, but finish playing the game. And then yes. And be with your husband.
As a matter of fact, you could have more. You could have more of the adventure of a lifetime if you stay in the game. Strangely enough.
Yes.
And I just want to jump in here, Lindsay, too, because I think you bring up a really, really valid point about family. Like, Yes, when you go out there and you play, you learn so much about how much you miss those people who are important to you because you don't have access to them, you don't see them, you can't speak to them. So all you have is this constant like thing in your brain because you have nobody on that island that is truly with you because everyone is scheming and everyone's plotting and can I trust this one? And so you don't ever have that comfort space that you have when you're at home. But just if you think about it, if you end up leaving because you like your experience is at home and you are so happy with being at home, what have you given up then for your loved one? Because you're coming home empty-handed, but you're also coming home because you quit because I missed you so much and I loved you and I didn't, and I had enough of that survivor thing. I don't need that. But you're still losing that time with your loved one. So in my mind, I was mortified. I was crushed that I was going home not winning for my family because that was the whole goal. I need to win this game. I'm giving up this time, 7 weeks with my family because I am going to get a check for $1 million. And this is going to be incredible. And that is what the sacrifice is about. It's for my family, as opposed to what I feel like Sean represented, that like is somehow these things were equal. But it was a very, very strange like explanation to make because, and I know Jeff said it, he's not going home to his husband. He's literally going to Ponderosa. So like it to me was very disconnected with like the reality of what Survivor is and what's happening.
Yeah, I want to say, I know I said I'd sit back and let you two talk, but I wanted to point something out that you said in particular, Lindsay, because you said you're going to play and to compete and win and also for the experience.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both. It's all of it.
Right. I want to highlight that, because it does seem, and I mean, if someone wants to go just, with the idea that, look, I only have a 1 in 18 chance of winning. So I'm preparing myself that I'm probably going to lose. I'm going to try to win, but I'm going to enjoy the experience while I'm out there. That's fine. That's well and good. And you probably should be somewhat realistic with yourself that way. But to just go out to have the experience, I mean, the thing is, that's nothing new. There have been people going out just to have the experience since like the very early seasons where people would come out and be like, I just want to be one with nature. And I just, and I
go home.
I had thoughts, but even
go
those
camping
people,
for the weekend,
right? Even those people generally didn't didn't quit. They got voted out because they were acting that way. And so yeah, I just wanted to highlight what you had said there.
I think the other thing is like, I have so many thoughts. And look, I didn't do this before, but let me do it now. Like, Sean, I am sure you are a lovely human being. I look forward to meeting you. Like I am talking to the Sean that is playing the game, not the Sean that is a human being at home right now. I think about everything that I sacrificed for this game. I think about the job that I quit, the coworkers that I left during a COVID pandemic. I think about how much my husband had to sacrifice, my kids had to sacrifice, my friends who were helping support my husband, everyone that was keeping the secret. Like, I think about all of that. I think about my purpose in going on the show. Not only was it for me, but like I wanted to teach my children that if you want something bad enough and you work hard enough and you never give up, that like your dreams can come true. And when the going gets tough, what am I teaching my children? That I persevered and I pushed through it, or that I quit. And my issue is like, and it's not even an issue. I'm surprised. Sean is a principal at a school. And when the going was, my brain is not working. I've worked 9 days straight. Like, I'm so tired right now. I am so sorry. But I just think about like what message he's trying to send to his students, to his coworkers, to his family. Like, and I know that he has some regret. So like, I'm not trying to just add fuel to the fire here. I don't want Sean to feel bad about himself, but I think about all those things, and I have to imagine, because Sean seems like such a great person, that this was such a quick decision and that this wasn't one that he had thought out, because I think if he had just been given a little bit more time, and this was my point about the shorter gameplay, is I wonder if the game was just moving so fast and they were losing all the time, and they didn't have Flint, and they didn't have food, and they didn't have warmth. Like
he didn't have
one
Sabaya.
of the things. Yeah. Like one of the things that, James and I would kind of have tiffs about on the island is like, I was always pushing, making sure we had a fire so we were staying warm, making sure that we had food so we were fed and we were not getting hangry, making sure that we were getting enough sleep. James wasn't sleeping on the island. I mean, he was keeping our fire going every single night, and you start to get delusional. And I was like, we need to stay tribe strong, and we need to make sure that these things are happening. He didn't have any of that. So I know that it must have been just absolutely draining on him. But you still don't quit.
Yes, and I think everything that you said, you don't quit. The effect that the game does have on your mental state, your physical state, all of that rings true. When you don't have enough water, you don't have enough sleep, you don't have enough food, it slows your brain down 100%. It absolutely slows your brain down. And you have that level of paranoia. So there's all of those things happening that you're not accustomed to. This is a new thing for you. But for me personally, before I went out there, I had so many conversations with myself about what I wanted from this experience, but also winning. And I kind of envisioned myself, and how am I going to look when I'm sitting in the final three, and what am I going to sound like, and what am I going to say? And these were very honest conversations I had to have with me. How is the world going to perceive me if I act this way? How is the world going to perceive me if I act that way? What is my job and my coworkers? How are they going to perceive me when all of this is done? You have all of these conversations because you have to, because even though you might not want to be representing something when you go out there to play this game, you end up representing something because you are an actual person who comes from an actual life. As you said, he's a principal of an elementary school. And so people will be looking at him regardless of whether or not he wanted them to, and the decision he made. And so to me, watching that moment when he decided that this was going to happen, I was in a tail. I was like, what just happened? Like, where did that even come from? It didn't, there was no lead up. There was
that
no
was the text
nothing.
You sent me. What just happened?
I was like, seriously, I was
WTF.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yes, like what is going on? I mean, Hannah was different because we heard it built into her narrative where she was talking about how unhappy she was. That didn't come from anything that Sean said. And so to me, I just feel like there wasn't enough honest conversation that Sean had with himself before he went out there, because these were things that he should have kind of, I don't know, worked through before he's sitting there in tribal council and then realizing, you know what, I don't really need this. This is not what I need.
I don't want to speak for him, but I think that based on what I've seen from his interviews and heard from, I think he'd probably agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, you have to do that. This is a huge commitment, and it is a huge, it's something that, and I know that people said it about Hannah, like you're taking away a spot from someone else when you end up quitting. And I do feel like there is something that rings true to that, because I know, Lindsay, you can probably remember people that you were in casting with who were in California. You saw them and you're like, and I actually had someone say to me once where I saw them at a function and they're like, you took my spot. And I was like, excuse me? They're like, you were the other me. Like it was between like that, like when we were at casting together, it was like, she's the other one of me. And I was the one that got picked. And I never really even thought about that. So
Natalie took my spot. Reen took my spot. Lindsay D took my spot. Like, yes.
So this all matters. So even though people want to think that like, oh, so what if I quit? Who cares? No, you actually took someone's spot. Like there is literally someone else that was the opposite person. And not, when I say opposite, like it was the other Sean, like someone else that filled that space in the game that didn't get to go out and have that experience and try to win Survivor. And so to me, you just don't, you can't quit. I get it. There are things that happen in your life that sometimes you can't control, and maybe that's different. But in this circumstance, it makes no sense. It just literally, it was so quick. It was so fast with no lead up. And then the reason for it also didn't make any sense. So I can understand him having regrets 100% because
I think you're right. It makes no sense, which is why we're talking about it in the emotion. It wasn't rational. It wasn't logical. It was all emotional.
Yes.
I think the other thing, I don't even want to say like I'm frustrated. I think my heart breaks for him because I feel like everything just got cut short. And he, as much as he says like, I got everything that I wanted out of Survivor or out of this experience. I feel like if he had just pushed through, he would have gotten so much more out of this experience. And I need that for
probably
him.
a fifth tribal council.
Yeah. I was so much more emotionally invested in Sean from like the very beginning. I mean, with Hannah, like she was first episode, I could tell right away when she was complaining all the time, like that just set me off. So like I was rage angry when Hannah quit. Sean, it was just more like disappointment and sadness. And like, I felt for him in that moment, but I was just kind of like, I felt like he was just making a big mistake. And I wanted to see him go on that journey. I wanted to see him go from absolute rock bottom to like rising from the ashes. You know, we all wanted that moment. I felt like, and we just didn't get it. And, you know, I would have loved to have seen more of Sean.
Yeah, well, I think that takes us nicely back to Rule 3. And this is the reason that, you know, we switch the order because it tells players to be flexible. And the reason that we flip these is because in his post-game interviews, Sean kept talking about how he now wishes he could have been more flexibly minded in that tribal council moment. And he didn't just use that word once. In pretty much every episode, it's almost like he was like calling out this, you know, I wish I could have been more flexibly minded. And so, you know, I mean, he pretty much answered how he did in terms of this rule, at least at the end of the game. You know, he said he wishes he could have recognized that Survivor wasn't doing what he thought it would coming in, but still switched his thought process to, quote, play the game instead of asking for this adventure of a lifetime.
Yeah.
But he was too hyper-focused on his one idea. And when the adventure idea went away, he didn't switch back to the game.
Yeah, and I think before you go out and play a game like Survivor, you can't lock yourself into any expectations. We all kind of have an idea of what the blueprint will look like when you go out there, but you can't say, this is what I'm doing and this is what it's going to be. And if it's not this, then I'm not going to be happy. You have to be flexible when you're out there. You have to be willing to work with whatever is doled out to you because you are completely not in control of basically so much. And so if he went into it with this idea of what it was going to look like and feel like, and it's one thing to have a vision and to like have a goal, like I want to win, as opposed to having this belief that this is what the game is going to instill in you and bring out of you. And I just feel like you can't go into a game like this and have expectations when you don't even know what it's going to be, because it's something you've never experienced before. So you can't plan for it.
Yeah. He even, basically said that when he told Mike Bloom, my Survivor experience was the complete opposite of what I thought it would be. And I think that was a danger for me. That was a mistake I made. I shouldn't have gone in with these preconceived notions, but I think we all have this idea of how we're going to play the game and how it's going to go for us. And that's just not the way it went for me. And yeah, you said it perfectly there. We've talked about it before, having plans that are too specific. And, he didn't talk as much about this in his pregame interviews, but he clearly went in with expectations, and they probably did not include being on the Lulu losing tribe and going to the first 4 tribal councils. And he wasn't able to adapt to it.
Yeah,
I know. And maybe, and I'll take like full responsibility. I need to be more understanding of that, because until I walk a moment in his shoes and like what he's experienced before the game, and his lifestyle before the game and everything that he's been through, and then having to go through like a really tough 9 days. Like I do want to give him grace. I just have a really hard time giving grace to quitters. Did you guys, David, I'm sure you did. I'm not sure if Jessica did. I know you've been busy this week.
Busy.
Did you guys see Gabby's tweet that she posted right after? I just thought that was just so brilliant. And if you guys have a chance, like maybe go check it out, because Jessica, did you happen to see it?
I did not. What was the tweet?
David, is it okay if I pull it up? Would you? Is that okay, or do we want her to just read it later?
Are you pulling it up to like on the screen or to read? I don't know that you can.
I can read it.
Okay,
do you want me to read it? Is that okay?
I mean, a shortened version of it. Not the.
Oh, it was very long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, parts
it was
of it
like
were...
3. Okay, hold on. Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah. It is pretty long. Okay, yes. Good point.
So maybe just the main gist of it, and people can go look for it on her Twitter.
Okay. Let's see. She said, much like a toxic relationship, the game cannot fix you. It is designed to break you. Before embarking on the journey, know what you want to gain. Be realistic with yourself. Prepare for things to not go as planned. Would you still be happy if they didn't? If so, go for it. People in general are bad at predicting how they'll react to things. That's okay. Be kind to them. But the protective side of me implores you to be kind to yourself and consider whether what you want to gain requires you to endure trauma or if you can get through it by other means. And she had just a little bit more. She had done an interview, and I actually retweeted it because I just thought it was so brilliant. And she's right. Like, you have to, and again, I think that's why I do get frustrated with people that quit. The casting process can be 10 months and you have so much time to think about what you're doing. I mean, applying and going through the casting process is part-time to full-time job. And you've got plenty of people that are constantly saying to you, like, can you handle this? Or what's going to happen when you're in the toughest situations of your life? Are you going to quit? I know how many times I had to convince everybody, like, I am not going to quit. Like, you are literally going to have to drag me off that island. And even when I get voted out, like, I still might try to stay. But I have to remember that, like, not everybody's like me. So
no, and that is fair too. But I do think that that's why you have to have those conversations with yourself before you go out there, because you need to know what you're capable of and also what you're willing to endure. I mean, I've mentioned this before, like with my eye infection, like they wanted to pull me from the game they were considering it. And I was like ready to go blind. I'm like, you are not taking me off of this island. I will lose my eyesight. Like that's not happening. That's not an option. So for me, that is, but also I live my life that way. That's the way I handle my job. People are like, Jessica, how do you keep going? How do you take another thing on? And this is just who I am. So that is a very real conversation you have to have with yourself when you are making a decision to try to go out and play a game like Survivor. I think Gabby definitely hit it right on, nail right on the head. Like absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
She also went in to say, like, how your perspective of the game as a whole changes after you've played the game, and like the progression of going from a fan to somebody wanting to play the show or to play the game. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that. You don't necessarily have to be a Survivor fan constantly being like, what do they call it? Couch quarterback or whatever the phrase is.
Monday morning quarterback.
Monday morning quarterback. But you don't automatically have to say, like, okay, I love this game, I'd love to play. Hey, maybe I should play. Like, like maybe you stop. Maybe you just say, like, I love watching this show. I would love to play, but like maybe it's just not for me. She worded it way better than I did because she's absolutely brilliant. So I suggest everybody go check it out.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the fifth rule, which reminds players they need to pretend to be nice and play the social game, much like you two have been doing here. Sean thought coming into the season that he would be good in this area. So in this particular area, Jessica, how do you think he did?
It's the unfortunate thing for Sean. He was doing well. He certainly made inroads very early on with Sabaya and I realized that didn't work out for him because of obviously what ended up happening with her. And then when he ends up on Reba, it's the same thing. I mean, Lindsay, I think you already talked about just how quickly people gravitated towards him and connected to him. So there's a natural thing about Sean that people just liked. And so I don't even think he needed to pretend to be nice. He's just one of those people that was genuinely just nice. And it came across that way. And there was a connection. And Jemaya actually talked about that, how they just felt this connection immediately. So I think he is someone who could have just, his game could have been amazing if he hadn't let the emotional component get in the way of the abilities that he just naturally had, which is a nice person that people just seem to gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did well here. You know, not only was he well liked on Lulu, but like you said, he found a spot on Reba in a day.
Yes.
And we talked about all the things, but a big part was his social game. So,
and he's non-threatening. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the rule 6 where we're going.
Yeah.
You knew I was going to ask you that because, you know, I know he quit, but how do you think he did in terms of, I mean, you sort of answered in terms of being a threat.
Yeah, I don't think we got to see enough of him. And I don't know if maybe that is editing, you know, maybe they weren't going to show the best parts of him because they knew he was going to quit, and like, why waste, you know, good television time? Or maybe they didn't want to honor him in that way or reward him in that way. Again, I don't know. I didn't see it. Like I said, I thought he was very non-threatening.
Yeah. And that debate, by the way, when I looked back at my old write-ups from Nyanka and Purple Kelly, that was a debate that was had about Purple Kelly. Was she purpled because of the way she acted and her quitting? And, you know, because she claimed in her interviews, again, this was part of the very defensiveness. She's like, I was a part of all the decisions and I did this and I did that. It's like, yeah, we didn't see any of that. She's like,
doesn't matter. You quit. You quit.
And then, but the thing was, Nyanka was very front and center. Now that's because she was causing or
oh my gosh,
causing / subject
controversial.
Yeah. And so
she was creating good television.
Right. Yeah. Kelly
they got to weigh the pros and cons.
Right.
Yeah. Like, she's not playing a good game, but goddamn, she's bringing in some viewership here. So we got to
let's get something out of her. Yeah. We spent all this money on her.
Yeah.
But, you know, back to Sean. From what
sorry,
we saw,
Sean,
I think,
we're reminiscing.
Yeah, I would agree.
Listen, I just found an answer. He would know all about Nyanka because I have been watching Survivor ever since the very beginning. I just found it in my papers. I always wanted to play, so there we are.
Yeah. You know, I agree he did well in keeping his threat level low. He was Sabaya's number 2, so when Emily and Caleb flipped, it was against her, not him. And when it came to Reba, I mean, the women saw him as less of a threat to be disloyal than their own tribe mate.
Yeah. In a day.
So,
yeah.
All right. The 7th rule, I think we can get through pretty quickly because it covers idols and advantages and game mechanics. I don't think we have much other than he knew about Sabaya's idol. Do either of you have anything? Okay.
I didn't see anything.
Yeah. All right, then we'll go to Appendix A, which I also know Lindsay has thoughts on, because it's about the tribe keeping their end goals in mind when voting. And we talk about voting out the weak, then the strong, then the weak, then the strong. At this point in the game, right after the swap, players should be voting out the weak. Though, again, that could be for challenges or alliance strength. And in this case, the Reba tribe, I think, was in a very interesting situation. Sifu, obviously the strongest in the challenge. He lifted that cage literally almost by himself. Still wasn't enough to be, you know, to avoid losing, but without him, I think, who was it? One of them said we'd still be in the ocean in the cage.
Oh, that was Julie.
Julie.
Yeah.
Still, we always say that alliance strength is most important. The Reba women did not trust Sifu. They didn't want to move forward with him, or at least D and J didn't, while Julie was still more old school, focused on challenge strength. But the other two pushed enough that she went along with it. We also saw them talking about apparently expecting only about 2 votes before the merge. And frankly, even if it was 3, let's do the math here. I don't think Dee and Julie would care because, okay, let's say that there's 2 votes. Well, we vote out Sifu now, and then we vote out Sean. Bye. If there's 3 votes, well, Jay wasn't really part of their alliance anyway. So they could lose 3 votes before the merge and get rid of 3 people who were not part of their alliance. So from that standpoint, it does make sense for those 2 to have planned to vote Sifu out.
I mean, I think if you have an opportunity to play with someone that you have a better connection with and play the game that you are more desirous of playing, if your concern is that person over there, I can't trust them, that's a huge red flag when you're playing Survivor, right? When you can't trust someone. So I do think that their read on the situation would have been correct for furthering their own game. Whether or not that would have meant winning challenges is another portion of that. But again, if you do the math and you determine how many votes you think it's going to take to get to the merge, and you're willing to make that potential sacrifice, it makes sense in the long run. Because now, and I know you've already mentioned it too, David, but like somebody still voted for Sifu, right? So now there's this like thing that exists where he's like, who voted Sifu? And it's so now there's more of an issue where before, I mean, maybe Sifu thought there was an issue. Now it's been confirmed that there's an issue. So I definitely think that this was not a great moment for those women and the alliance that they've formed, because now it's front and center and Sifu is going to be asking lots of questions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think that's the other reason why, look, I get that, like him quitting, that's, you know, somebody that wasn't able to play that really wanted to play, or look at all these fans that have been playing for years. Like, I'm not going to buy into all that. Let's focus on who it truly affects, which is Sean himself, the family that he's coming home to that has to help him process all of this, you know, the weight that he's carrying right now about all of this and the backlash that he's getting, like all of that sucks. But it also really sucks for the girls who had basically planned their game around them. They are backstabbing, you know, one of their original tribe members and putting their necks on the line for him.
Yep.
And he's screwing them up, you know, and it's not fair to them. You know, Hannah, I said the same thing about Hannah, but like, let's be real. Like the only person she was really working with was Brandon, and he left, you know, shortly after. But like these girls, like this could change the trajectory of the game for these people and could potentially cause them to get voted out sooner than they should have because he decided to quit. And it just, to me, like that's such a selfish decision. And I don't know.
No, I think that makes incredible sense, because you have to also think about those other people who really were flipping their entire game in order to keep him, and knowing confirmation from Jeff that Sifu was the one going home just I think makes that hurt that much more, because you're like, oh, they really did have a plan that was going to work, and all of a sudden he was like, you know what, thanks but no thanks, I'm good. But they're not.
No, and from a selfish standpoint, like as a viewer, I was frustrated because I was excited to see the blind side. I'm sure Sifu is a very lovely person, but I was excited to see him get blindsided. I knew something was up when they kept showing that the girls were talking about voting him out. I was like, well, it's not going to be Sifu.
Right?
And again, we wouldn't have seen all of that footage if it had been, if it was going to be Sifu, because, you know, they wanted to keep that a surprise to us. But, you know, that's who it really affected in the game. And I just feel bad for the remaining Reba players. So,
so speaking of the Reba players, I didn't know if you had any thoughts on, you know, threat levels and voting, differently within that tribe or anything like that.
Yeah. And this can be like more of a discussion rather than thoughts, but like James and I always had this conversation, and he really convinced me. It took us getting out of the game for him to really convince me. I always focused on tribe strength. So like watching Julie say to the girls, like, no, we want to stay tribe strong. We want to keep winning challenges. I even wrote down what Julie said. Julie said the best way to not go home is to not go to tribal council and to continue winning challenges. Right. And she's right. Because anything could happen at tribal council, right? And we see that happen in every season and every episode. Yes. So my mentality was always like, why are we even worrying about that? Like, let's just not go to tribal council. And it's why I always focused on having a great shelter and us having fire and us eating and everybody staying hydrated and all these things, because I felt like it was the reason why we were so successful in our challenges. And James would say to me, like, Lindsay, this is Survivor. It's okay for us to be cold at night. It's okay for us to maybe be a little bit hungry. We can struggle a little bit more than we are. And I'm like, no, that's the reason why we're winning challenges. We've got a leg up on these other tribes. And he's like, did it ever occur to you that like we can afford to trim some fat? Like, let's go ahead and trim some fat before we go to the merge. Let's not go into the merge Coco strong, 6 strong. He's like, you want to paint a giant target on our backs? He's like, this is what we're doing right now. And so I guess my question to you guys is like, who's right here? You know, is Julie right? Do you keep trying to avoid going to tribal council for this exact reason?
I think,
or do you trim the fat?
I think it depends, because sometimes you find out too late that you're the fat, or in someone's mind, you're the fat. Now, for Julie, if she felt really secure, well, for Julie and Dee, if they felt really secure with each other, and they believed that they had fooled Jay, and they believed that Sean was going to, be as loyal, I think you get rid of Sifu and you stick, and you just say, okay, we're going to lose the next couple, and that'll be that. But if it's at the beginning, what you were talking about, and you don't know, it's something that players always talk about. You don't know who's being honest until those votes are shown.
Right.
So you can have all the confidence in the world that, I'm sure Caleb did. Caleb was, going to the other tribe. Caleb was sure that Sabaya, he and Sabaya were good. And then he hears from Emily, Now, he'd been preparing for that option, but, and so it's just that sort of, so in your situation, Lindsay, that you're describing with James, in theory, James is right. I think in practice, you better be damn sure that you're not the one that's going to get trimmed.
And the other thing I got to think about this.
I know. This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
I know.
And so I think the other thing. No, go ahead, Jessica.
Also, you run the risk of, if you decide that you want to trim the fat, things can go crazy at tribal council too, right? Now the whole shot in the dark thing, someone can have an idol. So you're putting yourself in an unnecessary risk. Right. Especially now with how there's so many advantages and so many twists and so many turns, and everyone that could have something in their pocket. So it is something to consider very strongly, that if you go to tribal council, even if there is a plan in place, like we just saw, Sifu was the plan. Right. And all of a sudden Sean's like, you know what? About that. Never mind. I'm good. Good luck. I'll see you on the other side. Yeah. You have no control over that.
There was, I'm going to bring up a point, Lindsay. There was someone on your tribe who said he threw a challenge in order to get rid of someone else.
Why? Why are you doing this? Like, you're just really trying to make me rage angry right now.
Oh, he does want you to rage.
And then, so yeah, there are situations. If like if Katurah knew that Bruce was pissing off everyone, if everyone had expressed that to her, then maybe you throw the challenge to get rid of him. But I side more towards, Eliza's position of never throw. And
that's mine too.
Challenge,
I would never throw a challenge. Not in a million years.
And wasn't Eliza involved in one of the throwing of a challenge? I thought she was.
I don't think so. But I think there are rare occasions when it is okay to do it. If you are certain, if you are on your season, Jessica, You know, when there was a swap that put certain people in the majority, and supposedly in the majority, it was like, well, they can get rid of someone, or I think it was what did Michaela say? If they can't handle their business, that's their problem, or something to that effect.
Yep.
And they couldn't. And so, so yeah, I think that there are times when, if it's not only if you're trying to get rid of someone, but if you swap in such a way that one of your tight allies is in danger on another tribe, then maybe you throw to save them. But again, you better, especially now, like you said, do you want to take that 1 in 6 shot that someone knows that they're going and they play
not
the
anymore.
shot in the dark? You know, and so it's just it's a risk. I mean,
look at Austin and Drew. They have 3 things that they can use plus their shots in the dark.
Yeah.
Right. But okay, so that adds to my point. Like, I'm about to play my own devil's advocate, which is, how important are moves and or big moves before the merge?
Not
especially in this shorter game. Yeah, okay. No. So it's not important to y'all. So y'all don't even consider anything that happens before the merge.
I just don't think. I mean, first of all,
let me rephrase this.
You know our opinions on big moves to begin with. So, but a move that early in the game, the only people who are going to see it are your tribe.
Right.
Other people might hear about it, but it doesn't have the same impact. And nobody's going to remember it. I mean, there's, people nowadays, especially, most of the games are won by people who are staying low on the radar and only popping up at the end.
Yeah,
so,
that's fair.
Even though it's a shorter game, it's even a smaller window that people are often looking at in terms of what you did. And in part, that goes back to, voting out all the threats just before you get to that window. So, I mean, you make a big move early, all it does is paint a big target on you.
Yeah. I guess I look at it more as like when you're looking back at a winner, especially in this shorter game, is it's like, okay, well, what did they really accomplish? They didn't do anything until the merge. I worry about those narratives, so again, if nobody thinks that moves need to be made until the merge hits, then yes, you should try to avoid tribal council at all costs. But if you don't want to beware advantage and you don't get a chance to go on a journey, and you're not one of the lucky ones to find the idol, then what other moves are you making before the merge? But you guys answered my question, which is it's not important. So if it's not important, So if it's not important, then yes, I stand by the fact that you want to avoid tribal council at all costs.
I mean, I think
someone like Erica who won. I mean, her tribe kept winning all of the challenges, and then they went into the merge with the majority. And so I think that speaks volumes to the game that you can then play once you do merge, because you come in with the numbers. So there is a lot to be said about having that stability when you are merging, and we've seen it play out, and we've seen it work for tribes who have gone in with the most people from their original tribe.
But that's the key, like you said, coming in with the numbers. In this case, see, a mixed tribe like this is different from an original tribe. Like
yes, and that's something to consider.
Mixed tribe like this, if you're losing people, you're not losing your allies. If, like I said, if Dee and Julie had lost everybody else in their tribe, they don't care. They reunite with Austin and Drew and whoever they've picked up over there, and they move forward. Whereas,
but who's to say they should be worried that Drew and Austin found somebody else that they can play with, and that, because I know if I got into the merge, I would be so paranoid that the people that I had originally agreed to play with went and found new people to play with, or was put in a situation where they had to tell them about all their advantages that they had. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, you never know, and so there is. yes, there is an argument to be made from Julie's standpoint, from your standpoint, that the best way to avoid it all is just not to go to tribal council.
Yeah.
But you're weighing that against keeping someone who literally no one on the tribe trusts.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the problem is, it's, I say that, but it's, the weighting is different because Sifu is their challenge strength. Without him, I'm sorry, if it's a strength-based challenge, they are going to lose. There's just no two ways about it. But you don't know what the next challenge is going to be. So, you know, you hope it won't be carrying a cage again, or, you know, carrying anything big. And then you go from there. And so that's, yeah, that's, you know, like so much else in Survivor, it depends. But in general, I would say
it's kind of like you need to have flexibility.
Yeah, really. But I would say in general, alliance strength is almost always the most important thing. Yeah. And sometimes that means keeping everyone together, and sometimes that means trimming someone.
As long as you're not the fat.
As long as you are sure you are not the one who's going to be trimmed. Yes.
Yes.
As sure as you can be in this new era.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, all right. Well, it is time to wrap things up. So, Lindsay, what are your final thoughts on Sean?
I mean, I think I told you guys what my thoughts are. I just hope after this experience, Sean gets some peace, because I hate that people, including myself, are giving him a hard time. I hate that he has regrets. I don't want that for him. Like I said, I'm really sad at the way things turned out. I'm sorry. I wish I had something more deep and exciting to say, but
you gave us a lot earlier. So, like you
I'm
said,
sorry.
You kind of wrapped it up earlier. Jessica,
yeah, I've got nothing for you.
I also feel for Sean. I do think that this has got to be a very tough time for him, because the world is reacting to something that he's been waiting for that reaction for, right? He's had all of this time to spend with it, to talk to his family about it, to wait for that moment. And now we are seeing it, and we're all kind of scratching our heads because we're a little bit confused, and we're giving him a little bit of guff about it. So I also feel for him, and I understand that it has to be a lot for him to be processing and going through. But this is why you have those conversations with yourself before you play this game. And this is why it becomes so important to do so, because the world will talk about you, and Twitter will talk about you, and Instagram and all of these other social media platforms will talk about you and what you did and why you did it. And no one will truly understand why Sean chose to do, why Sean did what he did.
Well, they will after listening to this podcast.
Of course they will. They'll be completely, it'll be so clear.
Yeah.
So I think that Sean is a very good example of what you need to do before you play a game like this. You really, truly need to understand yourself, and you need to understand why you are making this decision to go out and play this game, because it is not going to be anything that you expect. You can practice all the fire making in the world, and you can try to build a shelter in your backyard, and you can fast for 3 days and see how your body does, and you can try to do all of these things, cut caffeine out, stop smoking, and do all of this stuff to prepare, but nothing can actually prepare you, affect you. And so that really boils down to who you are as a person and what types of adjustments you can make. And really the flexibility component is huge here. So I just feel like Sean, I don't know, maybe he saw it as an easy out and thought that this was the best way for him to walk away from this game. I do think it's a matter of like Monday morning quarterbacking. And does it sound exciting and sexy and fun? Like, I'm going to go on a TV show and I might win $1 million. Yeah, it does. But this is a real freaking game that puts you through your paces. So just know before you go out there, there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to deal with that you don't ever deal with. It's real. Trust me. Like, you need to have these conversations with yourself in order to know if you can truly, truly handle just the effect of the game and not just playing the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would add
before I
get to my thought, I would add, I mean, that's true of so much in life. You can envision what you think something's going to be like. Like, you know, you can envision what it's going to be like to be married or to have kids or to have this job or to switch jobs or, you know, to retire. And you're going to be wrong most of the time. You know, 2 years ago, if you had asked me, what is it going to be like to be retired? I would not have told you, you know, what it is right now. I would
TikToks all day long.
Exactly. I mean,
hanging out with two ex-Survivor players on a Friday night.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a good time. Yeah.
It is. You know, I literally just turned down a job. Okay, a job offer and it was the exact job that I was thinking I would get after I retired. I had looked at it and said, okay, after my revolving door period and after everything else, I think this person over here will probably also retire. He's older than me and he did this. And then I will probably move into that. And then I looked at it and I looked at where I am now and I said, you know what? No, I just don't want to. And so, yeah, it's for everything, but especially, you know, what we're talking about here for Survivor, you know, I mean, it's not like retirement, but it's, you know, it's a big, huge change and it's something big that you're going to go through. So yeah, absolutely. You know, do your best to think it through, but know it's going to be different.
Yes.
You know, even for a longtime fan like Sean. Now, there has been a lot of discussion on social media, of course, with this being the second quit of the season. And some are saying the contestants they're casting are too soft or too much of super fans, but not really players. I think most of those criticisms miss the point. I mean, most of them are like, oh, they should go back to when men were men. And, you know, and it's just like, oh, go watch MMA and leave us alone. But, you know, I think this series of two quits are directly related. Not a symptom of some overarching problem with Survivor. I would and have said that some of the blame falls on Jeff because he's been emphasizing this whole experience for Survivor lately. But the players should still know what they're getting into. You know, and Sean, to his credit, now looks back on it and wishes he had done things differently. To me, that puts him in a different category than those who have quit before him. This was Sean getting into his own head and not being able to get out in that moment. As Pink Floyd put it, one slip and down the hole we fall. It seems to take no time at all. A momentary lapse of reason that binds a life for a life. A small regret you won't forget. There'll be no sleep in here tonight. And
Jessica, hold on. Jessica, did you understand any of that? Because I didn't.
You didn't?
Jessica, did you?
Deep. That was deep.
It's very deep. It's very deep. It's Pink Floyd, you know, it's deep.
It's always deep.
You know, I mean, the key is the momentary lapse of reason, and he has this regret now, you know. And
okay. All right. Thank you for the summary.
So I would sing it, but nobody wants that.
Oh, no. Wait, time out.
Okay, one person wants that.
Before.
I did, and that was a mistake.
And it was the greatest moment I think I've ever experienced on this podcast with you.
You maybe, but I don't know about anyone else.
It was incredible. It was totally unexpected. I loved every second of it. So please, if you want to rap, go ahead.
No. Yeah, go ahead. Rap Pink Floyd for us.
Yeah, rap Pink Floyd.
Oh, that would be great.
That would be weird.
Echo of Grace.
Now, I also assert this was caused by a series of events. I truly don't think Sean would have quit if he hadn't seen Hannah do it. If that thought hadn't already been in his mind that this was a way out, he would not have been the first quitter of the new era. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to pile on to Hannah, you know, more blame to Hannah.
Pile on.
But I'm just saying it was a series of unfortunate events involving Sean losing 4 straight immunity challenges, therefore going to 4 straight tribal councils, Hannah quitting, him losing his closest person in the game via blindside, and then knowing he'd be helping to send out a guy who clearly wanted to be there, while when he decided in his own head that he didn't need to be. And that is why Sean lost.
And that is why my pick didn't get sent home. Thanks, Sean.
Oh, your pick to go. Yes.
Yeah, I said Seafood was going to be voted out.
Yes.
And I'm never right about these things, so I should have known immediately.
Right.
I was watching the episode going, oh my God, maybe I got this one right.
No.
No.
All right. Well, before we get to our predictions, we're approaching 2 hours here, so we should
wrap this up. I'm tired.
But
I got a Phillies game to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well,
we're winning 4-2 though, so we're good. Yeah.
People can go to robhaswebsite.com/yxlostfeed again to get the poster t-shirt, and the checklist t-shirt that Jessica is wearing.
It's gorgeous. Buy it.
So definitely head over to there. And then you can also find all of us at different places on social media.
Oh, social media. Here we go. Listen, everyone. I'm at Jessica Lewis 89, and I realize I've been a little quiet lately, and I apologize for that. But I'm still there, and I'm coming back. So just be mindful of that. That's on Twitter. And David Bloomberg is the social media guru at this point. We've already talked about his TikTok. He has an entire page of all of the places that you can find him, that you can follow him, that you can like him, that you can retweet him, that you can, I don't know, repost him. I don't even know what half these sites are. It's very fancy. So, David, where can they find you at all of these places?
So you could find me at on Linktree at Linktree/David Bloomberg, and there's a dot before the EE there. And I added a few graphics in here to make things a little less boring on that page.
Lindsay, do you see this?
It's a lot. I'm actually really impressed, though.
Oh, look at that.
I'm really impressed.
It is impressive.
I mean, it's a standard form. It's not like I created it. I just added some graphics to it. But there's a lot of places you could find me. You could find me at most text-based social media like Twitter and Blue Sky is at David Bloomberg. On the video platforms, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram is at David Bloomberg TV. And because Threads is connected to Instagram, I'm at David Bloomberg TV there too. I've been posting.
You need to change your little Twitter symbol though to the X.
I refuse. It's not X. X is stupid.
Good.
I will never.
Keep the Twitter.
Yes, exactly.
Keep the bird.
Is one of the dumbest.
He's not being flexible.
Anyway, but yes. Well, no, I still call it the Sears Tower in Chicago. So, and it hasn't been officially that in a long time. I have been posting 3 or sometimes 4 videos per day at TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. And, usually I mix it up like one Survivor, one Big Brother, or a couple Big Brother. Usually more Big Brother because there's more material. But also like today I posted a Survivor, a Big Brother, a Traders Canada, and a House of Villains. So I got one of everything.
Nice.
Can you believe this guy didn't even want to do like a video podcast?
Well,
I don't even know how many years ago.
My face isn't on most of these. Occasionally it is.
Stop it. You were all over TikTok. I have seen more of you on TikTok than I feel like I've seen you in podcasts.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Lindsay knows.
Especially with all the podcasts I'm doing, because in addition to this one, of course, I am doing Why Blank Lost for Big Brother. So soon after you watch or listen to this podcast, the Why Blank Lost for Big Brother 25 will also be released with Ovi Kabir. And then on top of that, I am doing Traders Canada recaps on the Tradar podcast. And that's spelled TRAIDAR if you want to search for that on your usual podcast host or on YouTube as audio, not video like this one. So, yes, I am currently doing 3 different shows podcasting per week.
So many.
Yes. Lindsay,
that's a full-time job.
It is. This is why
that's a full-time job.
Yes, it doesn't pay as much as a full-time job. Most of it doesn't pay anything at all. So
But it's fun and it brings you
is.
joy. And that's the most important part.
It brings me a lot more joy than my job did. Let me tell you that.
Yes.
And I like my boss a lot more. So, especially since mostly I'm my boss for much of this.
Living the dream.
Yes. Lindsay, where can people find you?
Yes. All right. So I'm mostly on Twitter just for Survivor commentary. So if you want to talk Survivor with me, you want to DM, whatever, you can find me at, I think it's at Lindsay Carmine _. And then I'm mostly like active on Instagram. Instagram's like my social media of choice. And you can find me Lindsay Ferris Carmine, which is my middle name's Ferris. So you can find me there. Come say hi. Let's talk all things Survivor.
All right.
How do you spell Ferris?
Like the Ferris wheel, Ferris.
I was going to say like Ferris Bueller.
Like Ferris Bueller.
Yes.
Yeah. You got it. You should go with Ferris Bueller when you're commenting on that. Like Ferris.
I can do that. Like Ferris Bueller. Okay.
All right. Well,
that's a great name.
Let's knock out these predictions here as we are at 2 hours.
I know. I didn't even think about predictions. What are we predicting?
Who's gonna go home?
Yeah.
Who's gonna quit this week?
Right. Well, it may be easy. You guys might just agree with what I say. So I'll go first.
I love that.
As we look at 3 tribes again, I worry that any sort of strength-based challenge will again fall completely on Sifu. But if they need to work as a group in such a challenge like they did this week, Reba just can't win. Even if there's a puzzle at the end. Jay is on Reba, and she's good at puzzles. But my recollection, I didn't go back and study, but my recollection of the others who've done well on puzzles so far is they're on the other tribes. People like Kelly.
Yeah.
You know, and so I basically think Reba is still screwed. Now, Sifu getting intel from Sean on his way out was already going to make things interesting post-tribal council. If they're smart, if the women are smart, they'll say, oh, we did it in case there was an idol or a shot in the dark or something like that. But that's pretty shaky given the way Sean was acting. Like, why would you, did you really think Sean was so sneaky that he was going to fool everyone into voting for him? And then, here's an idol. So, I mean, that, give that man an Oscar in that case. But the thing is, if they want Sifu gone and they stick together, there's nothing they can do about it other than a shot in the dark. And in fact, if he pushes enough, I could see Dee deciding that they should just throw to get rid of him. Now, that could cause some interesting friction with Julie, but I don't think it's enough to break them up. I also don't really think they need to throw. But
that was my thought. I don't think they need to throw it.
Yeah. In the end, I'm going to predict that Sean just delayed the vote against Sifu by one tribal council.
I agree.
It's fascinating. I'm going to disagree just to make it interesting.
Okay.
I agree with that assessment, though. I think that makes a lot of sense. But just because I did this last week and I was like, I'm just going to pick Sifu. I'm just going to pick Brando.
Brando?
Ooh, I think he's going deep.
You think he's going deep? Well, the only reason I say that is because there has been such a focus on the Austin, Drew, Emily, and where's Emily going to kind of fall, where she's going to end up. And I feel like Brando has been a little bit silent as of late. We haven't seen much. So I just feel like maybe that's going to happen. So just to keep it interesting, that's what I'm going to say.
I like it.
Yeah. See, I would think that those 3 would pick up Brando for a full-on Nerd Alliance.
I don't disagree. But what about Kelly then? She's going to go home. Isn't she your winner pick?
Yes. I don't think she's going to go home. Not
Is
at
Kelly
all.
your winner pick?
Yes.
Oh, I love her.
Could it have anything to do with her job?
No, she's just, I mean, aside from that, of course, obviously us nurses stick together.
Beautiful eyes, amazing eyes.
I love her as a person outside of the game. And I'm having the most fun watching her play. I love her playing the middle, her confessionals, just love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, no, I don't think Kelly's on that tribe. Kelly's on a different tribe because she's separated from Brando, I think.
I thought it was Kelly and Brando.
No, she's with Bruce and Katura.
Bruce. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then who is with Brando? Who's the other half of
who
Brando?
Is with? I don't remember, but we'll figure it out.
Still gonna go with Brando.
Okay.
Is it Kendra?
Maybe it is Kendra.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many K's. I can't keep up.
I know.
So many.
Look,
K's.
here's the thing. By the time I figure out the tribe and then they all of a sudden switch on me, like I was so worried tonight that I wasn't going to be able to get the names in the tribe.
I was writing down. I was trying to figure out who was where. Yeah, and I still screwed it up.
I didn't write the tribes down. That was my downside. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I want to encourage people to check out the RHAP patron program at robhasawebsite.com/patron. Rob does all sorts of special podcasts for both Big Brother and Survivor and just things in general. So, in addition to the Facebook group, Discord, all sorts of things, and supporting this show and everything on the network. So go to robhasawebsite.com/patron. Make sure you're subscribed to all of the reality TV RHAP podcasts by going to robhasawebsite.com/RHAP feeds and selecting your podcast service of choice. You'll get all the Survivor RHAP, all the Big Brother RHAP, all the various other shows RHAP, and all on one feed. So go ahead and sign up there. And that's it. Lindsay, do you have any other parting thoughts?
No, I don't have anything. I'm sorry.
She's like, I want to go watch my game.
So tired. No, I feel so bad. I'm sorry. No parting thoughts. I'm excited for next week. I can't wait to see SHIT hit the fan when Sifu finds out who voted for him. I love that. Sifu whispered to Sean as he was leaving, and that Sean just absolutely left like a trail of fire as he was leaving. So I'm excited to see what happens next week. Hopefully we don't have a quit. Would love something exciting to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It better not be a quit.
Yeah. By the way, I do want to mention, for anyone who's still listening, I don't think Sean did that as any reason. I don't think he was even thinking about it in the moment. Sifu said, "Did you vote for me?" And Sean's like, "No." Without even thinking about the fact that, I just gave away game.
They're on two separate pages. Like,
right.
Yeah, for sure.
Jessica.
Say thank you to the RHAP community, and also thank you to Scott St. Pierre and everyone who works so diligently with RHAP to do all of the editing for all of the work, not just for our podcast here on Why Blank Lost, but all of the incredible content that you can get from the RHAP page and postings, and it's everywhere. I feel like there's always more things coming out. I'm always amazed at how many more podcasts are being started. It's everywhere. So thank you so much for all of the incredible work that you do.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you for joining us. This was great as
Thanks
always.
For having me.
Always so lovely having you. And it was good having some some girl power here against David.
Yes.
That was nice.
David, you know how much I love you, but I'm always going to side with Jessica. So.
Oh, wow. I got to get votes.
Yes. Well, here's the nice thing. We're
bringing Tiffany. Okay, listen. If you Tiffany's on our side. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's it. I love it. It's done. Done.
I love it. David, I think the closer we get, I think the easier it is for me to just poke fun at you. And I remember how nervous I was last season when I was on. And then this season, my husband asked me today, he's like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "No, I feel like I'm talking to old friends at this point."
Yes,
so
exactly.
Give him all the shit you want, Lindsay. I give you permission.
Yeah. Well, he can take it. And we love to banter and poke fun at each other. So, So I have lots of fun. David and I have lots of fun in the DMs. So not in a weird way. I hope that didn't come out. So
he's sliding in
I'm
your
sorry.
DMs, Lindsay.
I know. No, it's not like that. It's not like that. We just talk Survivor. Talk Survivor. All right, I'm gonna stop now. I'm gonna stop.
Well,
this is my time to stop talking. Oh, thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Thank you, as always.
He's
Jessica.
like, stop talking.
I know. He's like, shut up.
I think she's more like, I got to stop talking than I am.
My face is so red right now.
This was a great episode. Hold on. Let me see if I can zoom in on.
I know.
We will be back next week, Jessica and I. And, of course, there are many ways you can see me or hear from me before then. But until then, we will see you in a week. Bye.
Bye.